Hello, and welcome to the Impostor Syndrome Network podcast, where everyone belongs, especially if you think you don't. My name is Chris Grundeman, and this is the Slim Hamouda episode, which I think you're going to really enjoy. Slim is a freelance network automation / net DevOps engineer from France with about 8 years of professional experience. Hi, Slim. Would you like to introduce yourself to the Impostor Syndrome Network a bit further?
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me. I'm so honored to be here. So, as you said, I'm a consultant engineer focused on network automation in the past few years, based in France, and I'm kind of excited to be here and interested in technology and leaning a lot on the automation side. Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, let's dive in. As we both mentioned there, you've built a nice career for yourself, I think, in network automation and net DevOps. And that's really interesting to me for a number of reasons. One of those reasons is that, a job title like that just simply didn't exist for probably the first half of my career, maybe even longer. So my question, though, as it often is just why? Why networking? And specifically, why network automation?
Yeah. So just a thing about the title, it's something that I'm thinking about lately on maybe the future of automation. Maybe in the future, this should only be network engineer, hopefully, maybe, I don't know, in some kind of way, but yeah, the automation part maybe should be blend into the rest. But as of now, yeah, it's a full-on position. And so I got into networking. So it's maybe a little bit of how I got into the career. So here in France, there are multiple ways to get into what we call engineering schools. One of them is you do 2 years of heavy math and physics, and then you do a national exam. And after that exam, depending on your rank, you get into an engineering school. And I chose a school that was focused on telecommunications. So in my head, I wanted to be more on the, mobile phone stuff, 4G and so on. And when I got there, we had some courses about networking, and I discovered networking. And slowly, I found that I was more leaning toward that side. It was kind of really fun. What I wanted to explore at that moment is that, yeah, maybe this is doable as a career. So slowly, at first, I wanted to be full on the networking side, but we learned a lot of theoretical stuff at school, not enough practice. So I didn't do that much of CLI, but I knew we studied a lot about architectural stuff and how it can be done. So right out of school, I wanted to pursue that. It was harder to find a networking job without enough CLI know-how, but I did know some software stuff. We did learn that in school, and that was the beginning of my career. But even though I liked software as little projects, I didn't like that much as a professional career because the tasks at that time that were given to me, they were way too far from what I liked. It was like financial application and so on. I was not really feeling the purpose, That's why I leaned at that time. I said, yeah, okay, I heard about the Cisco certifications. I didn't know about them before. And it was a nice gateway. It enabled me to get my real first networking job. And after that, it was okay, the machine was booted on, and Cisco CCNA, Cisco CCNP. And at that time, I was looking for a really heavy networking site. And I discovered that there is something called network automation. And I was going through a lot of job interviews focused here purely on network engineering. And one of them proposed to me to be, oh, you did software before. How about we are trying to build a team. How about coming through? And from there, it became my title from the past few years. Yeah.
Awesome. That's a great story. I like that. And it's definitely one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is I think that the entry points into networking and then especially, network automation are definitely a little bit different than they were when I got involved in it. Although it sounds quite similar, right? A little bit of it is just kind of falling into it. I think there's very, very few people who set out in life to become a network engineer just because it's not something that you even know that you would want to do. until you kind of stumble across it.
Nobody talks about this when you are a child. Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing I'm interested in there, we talk about this on the show occasionally, right? Around certifications and their value. And I think the general consensus of folks we've talked to is that certifications are great in early career to kind of do two things, right? One, to structure your learning and give you a path to learn the things you probably need to know. And then also to kind of demonstrate that you've done that work, right? To show that you have some at least basic knowledge of what's going on there. But there is a little bit of debate about whether that's a truly, personal reward or if it's really, what I mean, I guess, is, in your opinion, did getting the Cisco certifications, right, the CCNA and then later the CCNP, did that, having that certification, is that actually what kind of unlocked the door to getting a job you wanted? Or was it just that it gave you the confidence to go apply for the job you wanted?
A little bit of both. So as I said, I studied networking. So I knew the theory. I knew OSPF, I know IP, I knew TCP, and all that. But I had little to no CLI applied project. And that helped me, even though if I spend some time myself learning it without the certification, it would have helped to have been done. But the certification, yeah, it's organized. You have the chapters. You know what you need to know, and you said the right word. It's about confidence. It gave me exactly, yeah, okay. Even if deep down I had the knowledge, the certification approved, even to myself, okay, I'm ready to go and apply. And even when I apply, I know I can confidently at least answer question. And when I don't know, I really don't know.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I like that. That lines up kind of with my thinking as well. So, I think that makes sense, right? It is that combination, right? There are definitely kind of the HR bots out there that are looking for certain things on a resume and won't even talk to you unless you have, some boxes checked. But I think a lot of it does come down to, as you pointed out there, like that confidence tending to be key. And I like what you brought out there, that it's not just confidence in what you know, but also confidence enough to admit what you don't know, which I think is really, really valuable. That was definitely something for me in my early career, right? Was just, I was really afraid to tell somebody when I didn't know something, because I felt like it was my job to know. And learning to be able to be like, no, I have no idea how that happened. Like, we're going to go find out, though, was a valuable skill.
Yeah, that's the tips that they give you for to be in interviews. Like, when you don't know, say you don't know. But early in the career and right out of school, you want to answer all the question, and that's maybe part of the nature, but it's what we learn for the career.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm interested in that, right? So it kind of sounds like, and I don't know if did you have a software engineering job to start out with and then kind of rolled from there back to networking, or how did that timeline work out? Yeah.
My first actual job, I was in part of the software engineering team.
Okay.
I was doing some Java because I learned Java in school, and it was some bash scripting and some proprietary software. And it was more like solving some bugs from a program that was developed by someone else. And I felt like, what I am doing here, I'm just fixing something that isn't even mine, and I don't even understand what's behind it. And I didn't have like a calling for it. I want to say, like, today I still do. I code almost every day, and it's almost the same stuff as when I was at that job. But now I understand why. I understand the purpose of the program. I know where I'm going and why I am spending so much time debugging a loop or if or whatever. And that's maybe what helps. It's not the software part that is bugging at that time, but why are we doing this? And when you have a purpose, maybe it's more fun to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of evidence to that like kind of having that purpose and that reason and understanding the why can provide a lot more pleasure in what we do. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. I was working on a finance application. Maybe a finance guy who learns to code finds it way more fun than me at that time. Yeah. And that's what's fun about networking and mostly automation, because you more or less understand the problem and you kind of have an idea how to solve it. And software is a tool right here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, maybe talking a little bit about using software as a tool and kind of in network automation and zooming forward to kind of the current state. Right now, I believe you're a freelance consultant, right? So you're a network automation engineer at Carrefour. But maybe you can tell us a little bit about what it means to be a freelance consultant and kind of what that job entails or what that day-to-day is like. Maybe just a little bit more about what you're doing these days.
Yeah. So I don't know about the definition of freelance in France and outside of it is maybe a little different, but basically, yeah, consulting is like just mostly a client that doesn't have the technical skills will call up another company that has as a subcontractor, and that's what I was doing all my career. I worked as a subcontractor, as a consultant. Maybe it's the same word, depending on who you ask. And moving to freelancing, it was like more or less a natural transition. It's more or less the same thing, but now I'm just on my own. And for the technical side, depending on the client, how we see consulting, you can be just part of the team like with them, and you are in the day to day and trying to solve problems together. Or you can be as an outside person looking in. And for me, and for maybe the best way about network automation is like try to be part of the team as much as possible, either inside the network operation team or as an automation team, but try to plug yourself as much as possible with the guys that has their hands on the production.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's really valuable, like you said, especially for network automation, probably for any automation, but being close to the people who, one, have the challenges that you're trying to solve, and then two, are going to use the tools that you're developing. It seems like that affinity of really understanding well what their day-to-day looks like and what their frustrations are would be really important.
Yeah, and that's the challenge, I think, because you need to find the right mix between, okay, the operation team knows exactly their problem and you know some solution, but you have to come up in a healthy relationship where you can provide new solutions that they don't think about, but you have to listen enough to answer exactly to their problems. And that's some kind of a challenge, I think, today at big scale.
Yeah, absolutely. I recently read, I think it was an HBR, Harvard Business Review article that kind of talked about some of this, that really, or at least I think it's related, maybe you can tell me, that really high-performing teams actually spend a lot more time researching and analyzing and digging into the information and going back to get more information. Whereas, at least according to this research, right, lower performing teams jump to providing solutions right away. And a lot of in this research, the lower performing teams, not only did they kind of jump to putting together solutions faster, but then once they started looking at solutions, they didn't go back to gather more information, right? So if somebody came up with like, oh, well, we're not quite sure how this works, they would just kind of plow ahead. Whereas the high performing teams would stop and say, well, let's learn more about that. Let's figure out why that's that way, and go back to learning and exploring and researching, or at least talking about the ideas first. And I think that lines up with what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's about level of maturity of the team, I think. And I was completely guilty of that at the beginning of the career, to jump directly ahead, trying to find a solution. Okay, I think I understand you, and spend few days away from them and come out with something. But you realize, like, with maturity, I don't say that I have it enough today, but with maturity, I think you understand that you need more exchange and not dive directly. I think that's one advice I can give, like any new young engineer, is like, don't just spend your time on the task at hand and try to have a broader view on the project.
I like that advice a lot. Yeah, I think kind of being able to zoom out and see the bigger picture. Again, going back to that purpose, right? Why are you even doing this is an important point, rather than just like, should this line of code be here or not? Sometimes that answer becomes really easy if you zoom out and look at what you're trying to do at the end.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not that easy to take a step back. You are sometimes so in it, but something that we learn along the way.
Absolutely, yeah. So in all of this, I mean, especially I think now as kind of that freelance consultant where you're coming in, even if you're trying to be part of the team, you are a little bit of an outsider, and you're bringing in new ideas and new solutions and things like that. Maybe I don't want to assume, but I kind of have to assume that there's times where that's got to be a little scary, or where being that expert, at least when I've been in that situation, I don't always feel like the expert, right? It's a little intimidating. Yeah. Does that happen to you as well?
Yeah, and sometimes when I was working with agencies, they present you as the expert. And I felt so, I didn't like it, that word. I hated that word at the beginning. I'm not an expert. So wait, let's step back. It's not me. Let's talk to somebody else. And yeah, but the challenging part of being that outside guide is like, it all comes down to confidence, to gain the confidence of the client, your teammates. And once you have it, and the goal is to feel part of the team, even as an outsider. And as I said, it's quite common sometimes to find in the same team multiple consultants from different companies coming together and working with the client. And that's some challenge that maybe will never go away.
Yeah, I think so. There's some of these things that we just have to constantly get better at and get better at dealing with, I think, over time. And I wonder if, aside from just the consulting thing, which I think maybe a lot of people have experience with, I wonder if those feelings of, imposterism, I guess, right? That imposter syndrome, if that is even stronger when you have this kind of cross role, right? And what I mean is, you're doing networking and you're doing automation, which I think means, in a lot of terms, right? You can't be completely focused on software development. You can't be completely focused on network engineering or network design. You've got to have one foot in each. And I think a lot of times generalists can be again, a kind of a predicament or a precarious situation, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. In my first few years doing automation, I was like working really strongly with some really great network engineers. They were like high level, and I was assisting them with the software program and so on. And at that time, I thought maybe I should have done a few more years of network engineering before taking the step to automation. Maybe I could have been better skilled. I just had mystification. Maybe if I pushed a little bit more and then moved to automation, maybe it would have been better. There were always that thought that I had behind. And right now, when I'm focusing way more on automation, when sometimes clients are asking about really robust application, something that should have like really good software, really good, something really robust. And you spend so much time on the software side, and then when you come back to explain that to a networking team, it doesn't match. And okay, let's go back to the drawing board. And I feel neither. That's why happily there is the term network automation, because I feel neither right now. I really like networking. I really love it a lot. But if you don't practice it, you lose some of the skills that you gained along the way. That enforces the imposter feeling. Absolutely.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. And you're right. That really resonates. That idea that all these things are kind of like muscles, right? And so like if you exercise them regularly, they get stronger, and you're more confident in what you can do with them. And having to go back and forth between the two can definitely kind of almost neglect one while you're working on the other one. It's an interesting view.
Yeah, and also automation is like progressing so much right now, and there is so much. People are waiting to have way better solution faster, and we are not software engineers. We started from networking, so we are doing our best, and it's like running against this current, and there's so much to know in so little time. I always like the saying that it's like drinking from a fire hose. There is so much to know, and you're doing your best to grab like the 2080 from each side. 2080 networking, 2080 software, and let's do the best that we can with both.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, it's a very dynamic time right now in network automation. So things, I guess, we always talk about technology changing quickly, and that being part of the job of being in like digital infrastructure or IT or technology in general is having to deal with that change. But I think I agree with you there that, automation right now is definitely really evolving pretty quickly. Not that other spaces aren't, but, the tools we use, the frameworks, it's all kind of still being sorted out. It definitely doesn't seem stable where you can just go say, oh, well, this is how you do network automation. And then you can just kind of get really good at that. It's really a continuous process of learning right now and adapting as other people figure things out and share them, which can be really fun, but also pretty intimidating because you almost know that you're never doing the best thing because it probably hasn't been figured out yet even.
Yeah, there's no blueprint for this. Even like in networking, like I don't want to talk again about certification, but it's what like you have the blueprint. You need to know this for OSPF. You need to know BGP. You need to know this, and if you study and get those information, you can be good at the job. How you can advise any new automation guy today? What should he learn first? What should he this? It will depend absolutely on what he has to do and how he can help on day one, and then build from there. There is so much stuff that I didn't have the chance to use today because I didn't have the opportunity yet.
And it seems like some of these things kind of come in and out of fashion pretty quickly too, right? I mean, there's definitely, and not to date this podcast too much, but I think, things like YAML or Yang versus JSON or XML, and like which data structure you're using and which interface you're using, whether it's like netconf or restconf or now like gRPC, these things kind of are changing in real time. And so like, depending on where you're working and who you're working with, somebody might choose one thing over another. Somebody's using Python, somebody's using Go. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So as about how to use technology, I worked with clients like they really liked Ansible, and even though they were on the team, they were a really good Python developer. He said, no, we have to use Ansible because that would be easier for future network engineers that come on the job. Yeah, let's give them that. And I worked with other clients that no, we don't like Ansible. We know how to do Python. Let's do our best. Let's do robust application in Python. And for the next one, the people that are using it, we will make a web application and we will use our scripts for our web application. We don't care. We want robustness. So there is no right answer. It depends on the team, it depends on the philosophy, and so not to scare off anyone who want to get into this, but you just need to start with wherever you can, where you are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that a lot. And I think, well, I mean, maybe just talking about getting into this, I think one of the reasons I wanted to speak with you is that you've kind of built this, network automation career fairly recently, right? In the last decade, which is awesome. And so, in talking about that, right, you kind of talked about, new people starting and not to be scared. I guess maybe my question is around, would you recommend others to pursue network automation as kind of a good career path? Are you seeing this as a place where there's growth, there's more and more jobs, more and more companies that are interested in it, or are there still a lot of companies that don't quite get it? And is it hard to push forward? I don't know if that's a clear question or not, but maybe you can talk a little bit about what you see as the opportunities in network automation.
So I got into this job, first of all, because an employer trusted me. He trusted that, let's try this. Maybe you can do this. And I'm so happy that he trusted me because I ended up liking the career. But I saw that people came in and come out, started automation. Oh no, I don't want to do this. I like networking. Let's put this aside. So the advice, at least, I think you need to start with networking. It would be hard to jump right through automation, and start through networking. See what you like, what you don't like, and if you like to solve problems, you will see that automation is a way to solve problems. If you like to solve them through the infrastructure side, do it. Don't force yourself into software or what else, but be a user of automation, at least not, don't close off. And about the companies that are, at least what I'm seeing around me, so I'm still young. I just got into this industry. I didn't see that much of the companies, but most of them are not yet sold on automation. Still, there is still some. You still have to push a little. You still have to find the right arguments, and I'm sure with the right words, everyone will follow you. But you need to find the quick win. You need to find how they will be sold on automation. Everyone's different, and everyone will invest in it differently. But I'm confident that it's the way forward. At least some automation and some use of it in a way or not, either it be custom in-house or you buy the product or what else. But some of it helps. We can't deny that it helps. How and with which tool it will depend on you. But it helps, and it's harder to find companies that are sold directly, without that you have to start a conversation and listen to them and so on. In the great scheme of things, I think there are way more that are still not 100% sold on it right now.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you have any ideas or opinions based on your experience so far as to what might be holding organizations or leadership at organizations or even other network engineers back from fully adopting automation? Because I tend to agree with you. I have the same belief that automation is, one, super helpful, and two, because of how helpful it is, inevitable. But I also see that resistance. So I'm wondering if you've seen kind of or have opinions about why there is that resistance there.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot, like trying to find the right words to convince people. And I think it comes down to trust. Trust in the technology, trust in the people that are going to implement the solution. Trust that even if that solution is going to be put on, that it will really improve the day-to-day. And you need to gain that trust. And like anywhere else in life, trust is hard to acquire. So it takes time. But it's just the initial step that's important. Once you have a step, you can advance forward, but you need to gain that trust any way you can. But I think that's the way of the industry right now, at least in the green scheme of things for most of the companies. But there's still exception, and that's where we get our work.
Well, this has been an awesome conversation, but we are just about out of time. Slim, are there any like projects or causes or resources or anything you'd want to point the Imposter Syndrome Network folks to? We'll have your LinkedIn profile linked in the show notes, so folks want to reach out and get in touch with you that way they can. But is there any other things you'd like to highlight for the folks listening?
So I'm still fairly young in my career. I just started out, and I just started out being visible on the internet. So I'm only present on LinkedIn right now. And I'm testing it out and see where this takes me. But I'm on LinkedIn.
Cool. I will say you've been putting out some great content on LinkedIn. So I think if folks want to follow somebody who's talking about network automation, Slim is a great person to do that. And Slim, thank you for coming on and sharing your story with the Imposter Syndrome Network. I really appreciate this. I think the listeners will as well. And so thank you to all of you who are out there listening for your time and your attention. Those are your most valuable assets, and we really appreciate you spending them with us. If you did find this episode insightful or interesting, please consider paying it forward by letting others know about this show and the great guests we have on. Before we totally close out, Slim, I am curious, in your time so far, looking back now at the beginning of your career, is there anything you would have done differently?
I'm not sure, because even the steps where I thought I was disappointed, it gave back in years later. My beginning of the career in software, I thought, what I'm doing, I shouldn't have done that. But no, a few years later, and the skills that I learned, that they came back. So I think I'm not a person that thinks about that. I think every little step we made has its purpose, even maybe not now, maybe later, but if not for the worse, always for the better.
Awesome. I tend to agree with you on that. So it's a great place to leave it. Thanks again. And we will be back next week. Let me say, Slim Hamouda, am I saying that right?
Yeah, okay. Exactly. That's great.
I'll only say your last name once, but I like to get it right if I can.
That's fine.
I may be becoming famous for saying people's names wrong at this point, but I'm trying.